Hi, everyone. This is Vanessa from Corinium, and today we have Westpac's General Manager of Data Platforms, Pieter Vorster, join us for an exciting discussion on data and analytics. Pieter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me, Vanessa.
And today's discussion theme is transforming data into the #1 asset in your organization. So, Pieter, let's dive straight in with an important question that you will probably get from a non-data person. Is data really an asset?
Well, that is a very good and very important question. And really enough, depending on who you ask, you'll get different answers. But I would like to say that data is the most important capability, asset, product that financial institutions and any digital business has. And the reason for that is it makes sure that we can do the things that we want to do for our customers because we understand them better. And the information that we have helps us to go through the quickest and easiest path to help them. So it is an asset, but it's not an asset in the traditional way. We've had a lot of debates at Westpac saying, well, isn't data the most important? Oxygen, oil, blood, air. It is an asset, but we want to turn it into a product. Data is product, something that lives, something that breathes, something that continues to be evolving, something that continues to becoming more valuable and useful. That's what data has become. Whether it's hyper-personalization, whether it's new types of information, you cannot actually run a business very effectively without having the right information. So yes, data is an extremely valuable asset for us, but more than that, it's a product.
Great insights, Pieter. And in a nutshell, what are the points data leaders absolutely need to tick off on their journey towards getting data recognized as an invaluable part of the business?
Well, this is probably one of the questions that we struggle with often. And I'll give you a little bit of an example. People are extremely passionate about data, understand the values, done some smart analytics, used it in a very unique way, typically jumps up and down and saying, hey, we've got all this fantastic insight. It will change the world. It can really make a big difference. And then on the other side, you've got folks asking, well, really, what should I do with it? How does it work? Hang on, but I've got a business to run. I've got particular outcomes I need to achieve. Now, in a digital savvy world, and I must say Westpac is in a very, very advanced stage of that, we start seeing that people who understand data, know how to use it, can translate the business problem, customer problem, the thing that makes us successful into how data would be used. It makes it so much easier, which means that if you're not a data savvy individual today, you need to become a data savvy individual for the future. It's sort of reinventing your career and your competencies. So making sure that data becomes absolutely key to your repertoire of skills is, I think, in the modern day and age, something that is no longer an option. It's part of success. That also helps you start framing questions for data individuals in a way that they can consume. I think the biggest shift that people need to make is to be able to say, I understand the problem. I can start translating that into something that data professionals and skilled people in the fields of data analytics, AI engineering can make of good use so that they can solve the problem for us.
And moving on to the board, could you share with us tips and ideas to gain influence over the board and organization when it comes to promoting data and analytics?
I can give you maybe some practical examples just recently globally that boards recognize. So pre-COVID, you would ask some of probably the most advanced analytics firms that their analytics capability, the speed of which they can ingest data, the speed of which they can make decisions, has transcended them into a capability that is now core to their business. And that was all true until somewhere in March, April of 2020, when a lot of the models, once the pandemic hit, just couldn't keep pace with the outcome. So the perfect example that we have is, and there's many books that's been written about this subsequently, is how does the world respond to something like a pandemic or a shock that we're not familiar with? That also translated to boards, because during the period of 2020 up until probably 2022, beginning of the year, a lot of boards were looked at the complexity of understanding how can I predict what's going to happen next? Is the directional changes of new buying behavior on digital channels, for example, is that permanent? Do we actually have the right solutions in place? So that's a very good example, I think, that's played out in reality. But more closer to home is there is absolutely a 100% clear connection between a data strategy and an organizational's purpose and strategy. The board wants to understand how those things are connected. How does the one feed the other? And how do you know the interdependencies between those two? So getting that landed is a key outcome that supports what the board has signed up as a strategic objective for a group, and how data plays that role is absolutely critical mission number one. Without those two things being connected, it becomes a very esoteric question and problem statement. But also boards typically have a big role in terms of governance and oversight of risk practices. Again, in Australia, I think it's no surprises that recently we've seen some data breaches that made boards think slightly differently around, is our data secure? Is the access to information secure? Are people using it in the right way? So it's also looking at the risk aspects of data and bringing those two together that gives you a strategic path. Once the path is laid and the objectives and the clear business outcomes and the risk management practices are well understood, it is working through the board and making sure that those principles are understood and tracked. Ultimately, if those two things come together, data doesn't become a separate conversation. It is part of the conversation of how to run the company.
And how do you manage negative associations with data and analytics? What can you do to shift mindsets?
Right. So as you, and maybe a more practical example is what the world has recently experienced through responsible AI. I mean, the examples of rogue AI or irresponsible AI has sort of hit the headlines quite a lot. And there's some funny ones. And there's an example where two chatbots started arguing with each other, and then eventually one of them said that they were God. You can Google this, you'll find it. So the negative aspects of how things can go wrong absolutely is something that is more likely on the more advanced end of applying AI with really no real risk practices and understanding and decision making around should we do it or not. But it's the good opportunities that we've seen in terms of how applying advanced analytics, AI skills, machine learning, that starts helping us to understand that this is not going to go away. This is not something that's going to change. And to making sure that the communication and understanding and those lenses are felt by the people who need to make these decisions is something that will have to continue happening. For every bad decision that a chatbot made and it gets exposed into the media versus all the good decisions we made from healthcare through advanced analytics to longevity to treatment to solving customers' problems, understanding proactively if there's hardships in families, floods. We've seen all of these things happen in Australia. That is what AI intends to do. Now, making sure people understand it, I think, is one. Having good practices and robust responsible AI practices in your organization to know the guardrails is another, because there are certain things you just shouldn't do. The should we question is something that gets proposed quite a lot to say, should we actually do it even though we can? I think Google had a strapline to say, trust us with your data, we'll do good. I think those days are gone. Not that Google has not done anything inappropriate, but the point is, it is trying to make sure it can give people confidence in how we use information and the outcomes that it gives. But ultimately, it is about putting a human in the loop. Even smarter analytics, explainability, traceability, how the model really works. Are there any biases? Gender biases is obviously top of mind for us. Can you actually expose that those risks exist? And if they do, address them. So robust practices and how you apply analytics is just as important to the outcomes that you want to drive. But it shouldn't stop us from democratizing information. Data democratization is a reality we all live. The more insights you give to more people that can make better decisions at scale, share the knowledge amongst them, is the way that smarter, more commercially and customer-orientated businesses work. So the fact that there are risks doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's just how you go about doing it and making sure that that's clear, transparent, and people can understand what it does to protect them. Absolutely, it's a way to manage the risk and the perception.
And finally, are there any best practices or strategies that you think will strengthen the influence of CDAOs and their data teams?
Actually, this is quite a funny question, but with a funny answer, is when I start looking at chief data officers globally and listen to them present and even in how they sell solutions to their companies, more often than not, they never get judged on their technical ability to understand data management risks, algorithmic principles, understanding of how the data engineering coding works. It's how they actually tell the story and position how these things fit together for probably the general population that's not data native individuals. That's probably the most important skill. Yes, you do need to have credibility to understand what these things mean, how they would work, so that when you speak about a particular topic or problem you're trying to solve, that you've considered that this will actually work. But it is actually, don't miss the softer skills. Don't miss looking at the the team that you're speaking with, their level of understanding of what you want to convey, and conveying in a way that it sticks, that it's meaningful, that it means something in their life. Storytelling and data has been trained often. I know Corinium's done a lot of work across the globe around helping people like me tell stories with data, and that's a key skill, but it hasn't changed. It is still absolutely there. But also, write your narrative, sing your song, sing the chorus over and over and over again, because it doesn't stick the first time. No matter how boring it may sound to a chief data officer or to an analytics professional, you may get it the first time. If others don't, just continue singing the song, singing the chorus, reading the engine. That's perseverance, persistence, that transformation, unfortunately, give us all as data professionals.
Pieter, it's been wonderful hearing your insights. Pieter will be speaking at CDAO Sydney this May, so grab your ticket while you can. Once again, thank you so much, Pieter, for joining us today.
Absolutely fantastic seeing you again, Vanessa, and look forward to the event in May.